Rimuru back 3,000 years as a fifth true dragon. By Elite X0. During the final battle against Feldway, Rimuru was inevitably sent to the end of time and space. After Feldway sent him there, Rimuru decided to find a way to go back the moment he woke up. However, Chrono-Saltation had not only thrown Rimuru to the end of time and space, but it had also locked him out from returning to the world using space-time leap. It was as if his very existence was banned from the world, preventing his return. To make matters worse, Ciel told him that his original timeline had already been destroyed, meaning he could never go back. After hearing that, Rimuru began to feel an overwhelming rush of emotions. Sadness, regret, and pain, every negative emotion you can think of hit him all at once, driving him to the brink of insanity. In the end, Ciel managed to find a way to time travel to the past. However, the risk was incredibly high. It could completely destroy Rimuru's spiritual body if anything went wrong. Can Rimuru go back in time unharmed? And what will be the consequences of it? In this fan fiction, Rimuru will be overpowered, respectful, serious when needed, and goofy. There will also be other characters who are more powerful than Rimuru at the very start. Chapter 15: The Return of the Demon Lord. Third-person POV. In the heart of a vast, unknown forest, where the canopy above stretched endlessly, filtering soft beams of sunlight, two figures sat beneath an ancient tree, its roots winding like a web across the earth. The air was still, save for the gentle whisper of leaves swaying in the occasional breeze. This part of the world felt untouched by time, silent, serene, and hidden from the rest of existence. Beneath the sprawling branches of the old tree, the boy leaned back against the rough bark, his platinum silver hair shimmering faintly with hints of violet under the dappled sunlight. His golden eyes, sharp yet calm, gazed out at the forest's depths, their reflections catching glimpses of the world beyond the trees, perhaps even thoughts of distant stars. His expression held the weight of countless moments, yet here, in this tranquil place, he seemed unburdened, softened by the presence beside him. Resting gently on his shoulder was a girl, her long, raven-black hair cascading like silk over them both, shimmering in the soft light as if the strands themselves held stories untold. Her breathing was slow and peaceful, her delicate face turned slightly toward him, eyes closed as if in a dream, content and at peace. The quiet between them was not the awkward kind, but rather, the kind that existed between souls who knew one another deeply, where no words were needed, and the silence itself spoke volumes. The boy shifted slightly, careful not to disturb her. His gaze, though distant, softened whenever it landed on her. His hand, resting in the grass, moved an inch closer to hers, fingertips brushing against her skin. Her fingers instinctively responded, curling gently into his, though her eyes remained closed. A slight smile played on her lips as if she could sense the warmth, the closeness, even in her slumber. Around them, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if it, too, was aware of the delicate harmony between the two. Birds chirped faintly in the distance, and the occasional rustle of leaves painted a symphony of quiet nature. Above, shafts of light filtered through the dense foliage, casting a golden glow that made everything appear ethereal, as though the world itself had paused to witness this moment. In that timeless space, the world outside ceased to matter. No past, no future, only the present existed for them, and it was enough. Every now and then, the boy glanced down at her, as if to ensure she was still there, her head gently resting on his shoulder, her body leaning into his as if seeking his warmth. His golden eyes, usually so fierce, now softened, filled with a kind of affection that words could never capture. For her part, even in sleep, she seemed to sense his presence. She breathed deeply, her chest rising and falling in a slow, rhythmic pattern. Her face, framed by her waist-length hair, bore an expression of pure contentment. She was safe here, in this small slice of the world, leaning against him, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the forest. As the light shifted and the shadows lengthened, time seemed to bend around them, moments stretching into eternity. The boy closed his eyes for a moment, taking in the sensation of the world around him, of her beside him. In this quiet, shared solitude, there was something profound, an unspoken bond, deep and unwavering. It was in this simplicity, this peaceful moment beneath the trees, that they found something eternal. Rimuru POV. It's strange how much has changed over the years. Chloe and I have become somewhat famous now, the A-rank adventurer couple they call us. We're known for taking on tough jobs together, from eliminating dangerous monsters to protecting entire towns. People talk about us, and it's weird, to say the least, being seen as some kind of duo that everyone admires. But it's not like I hate it. Honestly, Chloe and I have grown so close that sometimes I wonder if people see us as more than just partners in battle. The way we act now, yeah, I guess you could say we're almost like a couple. As I sit under this massive tree, I think about all the things we've been through. We've visited places I'd never even imagined before, countries with strange customs, ruins that held long-forgotten secrets, and villages with simple people who looked at us like heroes. We've been part of so many different adventures that sometimes I forget how far we've come. A few years back, Hinata's consciousness started to fade. I couldn't just let her disappear, so I put her into a sleep state inside Chloe's body. She's still there, resting, while Chloe carries on. And then, there's Shizu. Her story is something that always sticks with me. Before she was summoned into this world, she lived through one of the darkest periods in her world's history, World War II. She was just 8 years old when the bombing of Tokyo happened, and it left her badly burned. That's when she was pulled into this world, summoned by Leon Cromwell. At first, Leon saw her as nothing more than a failed summoning attempt, someone who didn't matter because she wasn't Chloe. But Shizu's will to live, her plea for help, made him reconsider. Instead of letting her die from her injuries and the rampaging magicules in her body, Leon summoned the flame giant, Ifrit, and had him possess her. It was the only thing keeping her alive at the time, though it tied her to flames and gave her powers she never asked for. That's how she became Shizu, Leon's aide and bodyguard. But the real turning point came when Chloe, Chronoa, attacked Leon's castle. Leon fled, but left Shizu behind as the rear guard. Shizu thought he was throwing her away, abandoning her, but that wasn't it. Leon actually hoped that the chosen hero would take Shizu with them. And that's exactly what happened. Shizu fought Chloe, Hinata, who was controlling Chloe's body at the time, and when Ifrit's power ran out, Hinata took her in and mentored her. She gave her the anti-magic mask to help control Ifrit's will, and in time, Shizu grew into the powerful adventurer everyone came to know, the Conqueror of Flames. Shizu went on to become one of the founders of the Free Guild, working to expand the Adventurer Cooperation Union. She left her mark on this world in ways most people can only dream of. When Chloe and Shizu reunited recently, it was a powerful moment, and I was off visiting Veldora at the time. I had been filling him in on all the crazy adventures I'd had, telling him about some of the jobs Chloe and I had taken on. Veldora was his usual self, excited, demanding stories, wanting to know every little detail about my life as an adventurer. I told him about the monsters we'd defeated, the treasures we'd found, the ridiculous amount of trouble we'd gotten into, and how things had been going with Chloe. Of course, he teased me endlessly about her, but that's just Veldora. He was bummed out when I told him I couldn't free him yet, but he understood. I think. After a bit of pouting, he went back to his usual self, throwing out ideas for the great adventures we'd have once I finally let him out of his seal. I promised him I'd come back and we'd do something together, but for now, I've still got things to take care of. And now, here we are, Chloe and I, resting under this tree after another mission, eliminating monsters near a small village outside Dworgen. I can't help but smile as I look at her sleeping beside me, head resting against my shoulder. She's been through so much, and yet here she is, at peace for once. Her story, like Shizu's, is full of struggles and challenges. And yet, through it all, we've grown closer, stronger, even. We'll be heading to Dworgen soon for supplies and maybe a meal. I've been thinking it might be nice to do something more, maybe a date. Dworgen's got great food and plenty of places to explore, and it's been a while since we've had any time just for us. No missions, no fights. Just the two of us. It sounds nice. As I think about it, Chloe stirs beside me, waking up slowly. Sleep well? I ask, my voice soft. She rubs her eyes and nods, a small smile playing on her lips. Yeah, thanks. I stand up, offering her my hand to help her to her feet. We should get going. Dworgen's not far, and we can grab something to eat. Chloe takes my hand and rises to her feet, giving me a knowing look. As we start walking toward Dworgen, the excitement starts to build. After everything we've been through, a day to just enjoy each other's company sounds perfect. The sun is just beginning to set by the time we arrive in Dworgen. The streets are busy, filled with merchants, travelers, and adventurers. The smell of grilled meat and fresh bread fills the air, and my stomach growls in anticipation. Chloe walks beside me, her eyes scanning the lively streets, but I can see a hint of curiosity and excitement beneath her usual composed demeanor. There's a place I've been meaning to try, I say casually, leading her down a quieter street. We arrive at a cozy tavern tucked away from the main square. The atmosphere is warm, with soft lighting and the smell of cooking food filling the air. We find a table near the window, and I order a couple of their signature dishes. As we wait for our meal, the tension from the past few days starts to melt away. Chloe looks relaxed, her usual guarded expression softening as she takes in the surroundings. I can't help but smile at the sight. I don't think we've had time to just enjoy ourselves like this in a while, I say, leaning back in my chair. Feels kind of nice, doesn't it? Chloe nods, her lips curling into a small smile. It does. We've been so busy lately, it's good to take a break. Our food arrives shortly after, grilled meats, fresh bread, and a savory stew. The flavors are rich and satisfying, a reminder of how much we've missed these simple pleasures. As we eat, we talk about everything and nothing, the places we've been, the people we've met, and the adventures we've had. It's easy, comfortable. The weight of the world seems distant, at least for tonight. At one point, Chloe glances out the window at the setting sun, a thoughtful expression on her face. Do you ever think about what comes next? She asks quietly. I pause, thinking over her question. Yeah, sometimes. But for now, I'm just happy with how things are. We've got each other, and that's enough. She looks at me, her gaze soft but intense. Yeah, it is. For a moment, we just sit there, letting the words hang in the air. There's something unspoken between us, but it doesn't need to be said. We both feel it. After finishing our meal, we take a slow walk back through the streets of Dworgen, the city glowing in the soft light of the street lamps. Chloe walks closer to me than usual, and without thinking, I slip my hand into hers. She doesn't pull away. Instead, she tightens her grip, and we continue walking together, side by side. It's a quiet moment, but one filled with a warmth that lingers between us. For once, we're not just adventurers on a mission. We're simply two people, enjoying the night, and each other's company. And that's enough. For now. Time passes, and soon we find ourselves walking through the bustling streets of Ingracia. The sun casts a warm, golden glow over the cobblestone roads, and the air is alive with the sound of people going about their day. Chloe and I are headed to the Adventurers Guild for a new mission. It's a routine that's become familiar to us over the years: find a job, complete it, then move on to the next one. But today, something feels different. As we walk, Chloe suddenly stops. She's staring at something, her gaze fixed on a shop window. I follow her eyes and see what's caught her attention: a necklace. It's a beautiful silver piece, shaped like a dragon in flight, delicate yet fierce in its design. I tilt my head, looking between her and the necklace. You want that necklace? I ask. Chloe hesitates for a moment, then gives a small, almost shy nod. I don't waste any time. We step into the shop, and without a second thought, I buy the necklace for her. She looks at me, wide-eyed, as I take it out of the box and gently place it around her neck. The silver dragon glints against her skin, and for a moment, the world feels still, as if this small act carries more weight than either of us expected. Are you sure about this? She asks, her voice soft and uncertain. I smile, my tone light. Why not? It's not like we don't have money or anything. She laughs at that, the sound light and genuine, and I can't help but feel a warmth spread through my chest. Her smile, framed by the necklace, is something I want to see more often. After that, we leave the shop and continue toward the guild. But as we near the entrance, something shifts. My steps falter, and I stop abruptly, my eyes widening. A wave of dread washes over me, so thick and suffocating. This aura, it's massive, terrifying, a darkness so deep it feels like it could swallow the entire city whole. It rivals Guy Crimson's power, but there's something else, something unsettlingly familiar. Chloe's reaction mirrors mine, her expression just as shocked as she turns toward me, her eyes wide with surprise. Without wasting a moment, I scoop her up into a princess carry, spreading my dragon wings in one fluid motion. Chloe's face flushes in surprise, but she quickly wraps her arms around my neck, holding on tightly as we take to the skies. My mind races as we fly toward the source of the aura. What is happening? Who could it be? And why does this presence feel so disturbingly familiar? The wind whips past us as I push myself to fly faster, Chloe pressed securely against me. Despite the storm of emotions running through me, I can't help but feel her warmth, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against my chest. But now isn't the time to focus on that. My thoughts zero in on the aura, my instincts screaming that something is very wrong. I grit my teeth, my mind a flurry of questions. What is going on? Why is this familiar presence here? As I flew towards the source of the terrifying aura, I quickly realized it was coming from the direction of the kingdom of Feldway, a small nation on the outskirts of the Great Jura Forest. My mood soured instantly. Feldway was a place I'd rather forget, and for good reason. A few months ago, Chloe and I had taken a mission to protect a group of merchants from that very kingdom. They regularly traveled to Ingracia for business and, after completing their deals, always requested protection from the guild to escort them back. It seemed like a routine job at first, until those merchants started acting inappropriately toward Chloe. They tried to flirt with her, and worse, some even attempted to touch her. Naturally, I put a stop to it before they could lay a finger on her, but the real problem came when I filed a complaint. Neither the merchants nor their king took me seriously. They just laughed it off, dismissing my concerns as if Chloe was just another pretty face to be ogled. I was beyond furious at the time. Honestly, if Chloe hadn't stopped me, I might have obliterated the entire kingdom right then and there. But she calmed me down, and I let it go, reluctantly. Now, as we near Feldway, the sight before us leaves me speechless. The kingdom, or what's left of it, is in utter ruin. More than half of it has been reduced to rubble, obliterated beyond recognition. Buildings are shattered, the ground scorched, and there's no sign of life except for one lone figure standing amidst the destruction. As soon as the figure spots me, it moves with blinding speed, appearing directly in front of me in an instant. I tense, preparing for a fight, but instead, the figure drops to one knee and bows. Kufu-fu-fu-fu. I congratulate you, my lord, on your return, he says, his voice dripping with reverence. I deeply apologize for not living up to your expectations. I stare at him, completely shocked. My lord? What in the world is going on here? I slowly release Chloe from my arms, setting her gently down beside me. She stands there, her eyes wide with a mix of confusion and caution, ready for whatever might happen next. I turn my full attention to the kneeling figure before me. He keeps his gaze fixed downward, as if awaiting punishment, his posture one of complete subservience. What the hell is going on here? I demand, my voice sharp. He raises his head slightly, his eyes still cast downward, but his smile remains. I had hoped to greet you under more favorable circumstances, my lord. But I encountered opposition while attempting to clear the path for your future greatness. My mind reels. Opposition? He destroyed half a kingdom, Feldway, of all places, and now he's talking about it like it's nothing. This isn't how things were supposed to go, I thought. Before I can gather my thoughts, another presence makes itself known. The sky darkens, and a wave of demonic energy approaches, one that I immediately recognize. In the blink of an eye, Guy Crimson appears, landing near us with a heavy thud. His expression is as sharp as the aura surrounding him. Well, looks like I arrived just in time for the party, Guy says, his red eyes locking onto the figure in front of me. It's been a long time. I should have known you were behind this mess. His voice is laced with both amusement and irritation. I groan inwardly. Great, just what I needed, Guy showing up too. This situation is about to become a massive headache. As Guy Crimson lands nearby, his eyes take in the scene of destruction. His aura is as overwhelming as ever, but this time it's tinged with curiosity and annoyance. He walks over, a grin on his face, but there's a sharp edge to his smile. Rimuru, Guy greets me with a smirk, crossing his arms over his chest. Looks like you've been busy. I roll my eyes. Trust me, Guy, this wasn't me. I just got here. Guy's gaze shifts to the kneeling figure, and his grin fades into something more serious. I thought you were staying out of this world's affairs. What's got you so riled up? Diawolo stands, his voice smooth. I only seek to serve my lord, the one destined for greatness. Guy raises an eyebrow, glancing at me. Your lord, who? So this is about him. He smirks, folding his arms. You always did have a thing for causing trouble in the underworld. But now, you're bringing it up here too. I sigh, pinching the bridge of my nose. This is definitely going to be more complicated than I thought. Guy, and the destruction of an entire kingdom. What the hell is going on? But one thing's for sure, this situation is going to be more of a headache than I thought. Chloe POV. As we strolled through the bustling streets of Ingracia, I felt a familiar sense of peace. The air was lively with people chatting and merchants calling out their wares. Walking beside Rimuru always had a way of calming my thoughts. It had been years since we started traveling together, and by now, I'd gotten used to these quiet moments in the city before our missions. But then, something caught my eye. I stopped, almost without thinking, and stared at the shop window to my right. There, resting on a small velvet stand, was a silver necklace shaped like a dragon. The intricate design was delicate yet fierce, with its silver scales glinting in the afternoon light. For some reason, I couldn't look away. What's up? Rimuru asked, noticing that I had stopped. I didn't respond right away, but I felt him glance at the necklace too. You want that necklace? He asked casually. I blinked, feeling my cheeks warm slightly. I hadn't really thought about it, but now that he mentioned it, I kind of did want it. Before I could say anything, Rimuru grabbed my hand and pulled me into the shop, his usual carefree attitude making me smile. We didn't need to say much to each other these days. He bought the necklace without hesitation, and as we stepped outside the shop, he gently placed it around my neck. His hands were steady, and I tried to ignore the way my heart sped up slightly as he fastened the clasp. It wasn't a big deal, I knew that. We'd been through so much together, but still, moments like these caught me off guard. Are you sure about this? I asked quietly, my fingers brushing over the cool silver. Rimuru just grinned. Why not? It's not like we're short on money or anything. I couldn't help but smile at his nonchalant reply. That was just like him, always so relaxed about everything. I nodded, feeling the warmth of the gesture more than the weight of the necklace itself. It was a small thing, but it meant something to me. We continued on toward the guild, ready to take on another mission, but suddenly, Rimuru stopped in his tracks. His expression changed instantly, his eyes widening in shock. I followed his gaze, sensing it too, a massive, overwhelming aura. It was terrifying and dark, radiating power. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to Rimuru, whose face had hardened. There was no time to speak or react. Before I knew it, Rimuru had scooped me up in his arms, carrying me effortlessly in a princess hold. The sudden movement flustered me, and I instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck for balance. Rimuru! I started to protest, but my voice faltered. He wasn't even looking at me, his focus was entirely on the direction of the aura. I could tell his mind was racing, a mixture of confusion and urgency flashing in his eyes. We took to the skies, Rimuru spreading his wings as he flew swiftly toward the source of the power. The familiar feeling of his aura surrounded me, but this time, it was different, tense, controlled, but with an edge of apprehension. I held on tightly, my heart pounding, but not from fear of the flight. What was happening? Who was behind this aura? I glanced up at Rimuru, his jaw clenched, and his eyes darkened with intensity. He hadn't said anything yet, but I knew him well enough to sense that whatever we were flying toward was far more serious than just another mission. As we neared the kingdom of Feldway, I felt a sinking dread. I didn't like that kingdom, neither of us did. The memory of those merchants trying to flirt with me flashed through my mind, their hands too close for comfort, their words disgusting. Rimuru had been furious. If I hadn't stopped him back then, he might have destroyed the entire kingdom. I didn't blame him. They deserved it. But now, as we got closer, I saw it. Or rather, what was left of it. Feldway was in ruins. Half of the kingdom was obliterated, the buildings crushed, and the air smelled of smoke and ash. It was worse than I could have imagined. My breath caught in my throat as my eyes swept over the destruction, my heart sinking with the weight of the devastation. And then I saw him. A single figure stood in the center of the ruins, completely unfazed by the destruction around him. His aura was overwhelming, pressing down on me like a physical weight. But before I could even process what I was seeing, the figure noticed us and moved, faster than I could follow. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of us, dropping to one knee. Kufu-fu-fu-fu. I congratulate you, my lord, on your return. His voice was smooth, almost musical, and filled with reverence. I blinked in shock, my gaze shifting from the kneeling figure to Rimuru. What was going on? My lord? Why was he speaking to Rimuru like that? I deeply apologize for not living up to your expectations, my lord, the figure continued, his head bowed, completely at Rimuru's mercy. Rimuru gently set me down, his expression as confused as mine, though he hid it better. I stood by his side, my hand instinctively reaching for my sword. My eyes were fixed on the man in front of us, trying to make sense of the situation. Rimuru's shock was palpable, this was clearly unexpected, even for him. What the hell is going on here? Rimuru demanded, his voice sharp. The figure finally looked up, though his eyes remained lowered. I had hoped to greet you under more favorable circumstances, my lord. But I encountered resistance while clearing the way for your future greatness. The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. Future greatness? What was he talking about? The more he spoke, the more questions I had, and none of them had answers. And this is the first time anything happened like this in all the time loops I have experienced. Before I could say anything, another presence made itself known, an all too familiar one. My heart skipped a beat as I felt the demonic energy approaching. There was only one person with an aura like that. Guy Crimson. He landed with his usual flair, his red eyes scanning the destruction before settling on the kneeling figure. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was laced with amusement and irritation. Well, looks like I arrived just in time for the party. I shot a glance at Rimuru, who groaned under his breath. This was only going to get worse. Flashback, before the destruction of the kingdom of Feldway. Somewhere deep within the underworld, a figure stood in silence, watching intently as an image shimmered inside a glowing blue crystal. The crystal, no larger than a palm, pulsed with faint light, reflecting the scene of merchants in Feldway sneering and laughing, their faces full of arrogance. A dangerous chuckle escaped the figure's lips, his amusement laced with malice. Kufu-fu-fu-fu, how dare they disrespect my lord, he muttered darkly, his voice dipping with venom. As the memory and the crystal replayed their dismissive laughter, the figure's aura began to flare, filling the dark chamber with suffocating power. His black hair, streaked with deep red and gold, shimmered ominously under the glow of the crystal. His golden eyes burned with red pupils and black sclerae, glowing in the dim light with seething rage. He was dressed impeccably, his clothing reminiscent of royal attire, tailored to perfection like that of a prince. His aura, once contained, now burst forth violently, shaking the space around him. He clenched the crystal tighter, his eyes narrowing as his emotions reached their peak. His mind was set on vengeance. Chapter 16: The Return of the Demon Lord, Part 2. Third-person POV. Guy Crimson sat in the Grand Frost Palace, sipping his tea with a bored sigh. The bitter chill of the ice continent swirled outside, but inside, his palace was calm, quiet, and undisturbed. It had been ages since anything truly interesting had happened, and as much as he enjoyed the stillness of his icy domain, there was a part of him that craved a little chaos. Suddenly, a jarring pulse of energy cut through the air, ripping through the peaceful atmosphere like a shockwave. Guy's hand froze mid-sip, his eyes narrowing. This wasn't just any power, it was the unmistakable presence of someone evolving into a true demon lord. And not just any demon, this was intense, ancient, and familiar. He slowly set his cup down, his red eyes gleaming with sudden interest. A true demon lord, he muttered, the faintest smirk forming on his lips. Now this could be fun. It wasn't often that someone evolved into a true demon lord, and when they did, it usually involved massive destruction. But this aura was different. Stronger, darker. It crackled with an intensity that sent a shiver of excitement through Guy. And yet, there was something about it that tugged at the back of his mind, something that made him pause. The energy was coming from the direction of the Great Jura Forest, near a small kingdom on the outskirts. With a single decisive motion, Guy rose from his seat, his curiosity fully piqued. Whoever had just evolved into a true demon lord had his full attention now, and he wasn't about to let such an event pass by unnoticed. With a burst of speed, he shot out of the palace, leaving the icy wind swirling behind him as he flew toward the source of the power. The aura grew stronger with each second, and as he neared the location, the scent of destruction filled the air. The ground below was scorched, the remains of buildings shattered beyond recognition. Feldway, a small kingdom, had been utterly decimated. Guy's POV. Sitting in the Grand Frost Palace, I sipped my tea, the bitter chill of the ice continent swirling outside the towering walls. The stillness inside was perfect, calm, quiet, and undisturbed. For centuries, I had ruled this place, and though I loved the icy solitude, something was gnawing at me lately. A need for chaos. Something to break the monotony. Then, it hit me. A pulse of energy so powerful it practically split the air. My hand froze, the cup of tea halfway to my lips. My red eyes narrowed, focusing on the source of the disturbance. This wasn't just any surge of power, it was the unmistakable aura of someone evolving into a true demon lord. Ancient. Potent. And familiar. Setting my cup down, a smirk tugged at my lips. A true demon lord? Now this could be fun. It had been eons since anyone had undergone such an evolution, and when they did, it usually resulted in mass destruction. But this aura was different, darker, sharper, more intense. A shiver of excitement shot through me. Whoever this was, they weren't just strong, they were dangerous. With a single motion, I rose from my seat, the aura pulling me toward the outskirts of the Great Jura Forest, near a small kingdom. Feldway. No great loss there. In an instant, I shot out of my palace, cutting through the icy winds with a burst of speed, leaving behind only a rush of cold air. The closer I got, the more I could smell the destruction, the unmistakable stench of scorched earth and crumbling stone. Whoever had evolved into a true demon lord had laid waste to everything in their path. The winds howled as I descended toward the kingdom, the sheer pressure of my aura pushing the clouds aside. My eyes narrowed at the sight below, a once standing nation, now reduced to rubble. Chaos, destruction, and darkness hung in the air like a thick blanket. Half the damn kingdom had been obliterated. The aura I felt drew me in immediately, immense, dangerous, and unmistakably familiar. Who in the hell could cause this kind of destruction? With a grin, I slammed into the ground, the force of my landing shaking the earth, creating a massive shockwave that blew debris in every direction. The sound echoed like thunder, the sheer impact leaving a crater where I landed. Dust and stone flew as my boots hit the ground hard. I could feel the ripple of power from my landing spread out through the broken kingdom. The villagers, if there were any left, had probably already fled in terror. Good. I wasn't here for them anyway. And then, I saw him. A lone figure, kneeling amidst the ruins of the obliterated kingdom, his head bowed, surrounded by destruction. My heart skipped a beat. No. It couldn't be. Jet black hair streaked with red and gold. Power radiating from him in waves, dark and sinister, like a rippling void of chaos. There was no mistaking it. Noir. The black primordial. But something was off. His aura was different, stronger, denser, almost suffocating. My mind reeled as the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. He had evolved. Noir had become a true demon lord. I clenched my fists, my usual grin slipping for just a second. Noir. The one who had always operated from the shadows, the puppet master pulling strings behind the scenes. He never craved the spotlight, never showed this kind of ambition. And now, he stood at the pinnacle of demon power. And yet, here he was, kneeling. I stepped forward, my boots crunching over the shattered remains of what was once Feldway. I was about to call out to Noir when my eyes flickered to the figure standing in front of him. Rimuru. What the hell is going on here? I muttered under my breath, my crimson eyes narrowing. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the scene in front of me was wrong in so many ways. Noir, the black primordial, was kneeling in front of Rimuru. What the hell had I just walked into? I stepped closer, my aura still heavy and threatening. Well, I called out, masking my shock with a playful tone. Looks like I arrived just in time for the party. I cocked an eyebrow, strolling toward them with my usual swagger. Rimuru, I called out, my voice loud and teasing, looks like you've been busy. I expected some kind of smart-ass comment from him, but Rimuru didn't even crack a smile. His gaze was fixed on the figure before him, something dangerous brewing behind those eyes of his. Rimuru glanced at me, and the exasperation on his face was almost amusing. Trust me, guy, I didn't expect this either. Ignoring the girl standing beside Rimuru, some human I didn't recognize, I focused on Noir. He hadn't moved. His head was still bowed, his aura still pulsing with the unmistakable power of a true demon lord. Noir, of all people, kneeling before Rimuru like some kind of subordinate. It was ridiculous. I crossed my arms, letting out a low chuckle to mask the unease that had started creeping into my chest. You've certainly gotten yourself into something interesting, Rimuru. I didn't expect to see you here, and with Noir, no less. Rimuru groaned, rubbing his temples. I didn't plan this, believe me. I wasn't buying it. There had to be more to this. I released a sliver of my own power, my aura spiking as I fixed my eyes on Rimuru. You realize what's happening here, right? Noir becoming a true demon lord isn't something to laugh at. And the fact that he's chosen to kneel to you. Explain. Rimuru met my gaze without flinching. His expression was serious now, but there was a glint of something in his eyes. Amusement? Confidence? Yeah, I know, he said, releasing a surge of power that sent a shiver through the air. His true dragon's aura flared out, matching mine. He chose to bow because I showed him who I really am. The air crackled between us, the sheer force of our auras pushing against each other like titanic waves. My smirk returned, my curiosity piqued once again. Rimuru had always been full of surprises, but this was something else entirely. Noir's evolution, Rimuru's growing power. The balance of the world was shifting right in front of me, and I could feel it. This was only the beginning of something far bigger than any of us could have anticipated. Well, I said, letting my tension ease into a casual grin, this should be interesting. Whatever happens next, I wouldn't miss it for the world. I glanced briefly at the girl next to Rimuru again, ignoring her for now. Whoever she wasn't part of the equation, yet. For now, my eyes were locked on the two in front of me. The game had just gotten a whole lot more dangerous. Rimuru's POV. Well, this should be interesting. Whatever happens next, I wouldn't miss it for the world, Guy said, his voice filled with a playful undertone. He glanced briefly at Chloe, standing beside me, but quickly ignored her as if she were inconsequential. Before I could react, Guy launched an attack. His fist cut through the air with a sharp uppercut aimed at my chin, the speed behind it nearly imperceptible. But I had already seen it coming. With a swift motion, I ducked beneath his outstretched arm, the wind from his punch brushing past my head. Spinning on my heel, I retaliated with a sharp kick aimed at his ribs, my foot cutting through the air like a blade. Guy dodged the strike, his reflexes as sharp as ever. The force of my kick sent a shockwave through the ruins around us, the ground beneath us trembling from the sheer power behind it. I wasn't holding back, well, not as much as I usually do, anyway. We exchanged blows, the intensity rising with each passing second. My jabs connected with his guard, and I could feel the pressure of his counterattacks. Guy retaliated with a powerful hook aimed at my temple. I deflected it with my forearm and threw a spinning back kick in response. He dodged again, his movements fluid and precise, like a dance he'd long perfected. His left cross came next, but I ducked under it, sending a turning kick toward his midsection. Guy barely managed to sidestep, his footwork light, his expression still casual despite the fierce exchange. We traded jabs and crosses, hooks and spin kicks, neither of us letting up. It felt like an endless flurry of attacks, each strike calculated but with the weight of two beings far beyond mortal strength. A powerful roundhouse kick from Guy almost connected, but I slid back just in time, the force of it brushing past my chest. Without missing a beat, I lunged forward with a jab, cross, and hook combination, aiming to keep him on the defensive. We continued for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Time seemed to slow down during our exchanges. And then, we both stopped, stepping back to put some distance between us. Guy wiped a small bead of sweat from his brow, his smile widening. Well, that was fun. I let out a small breath, trying to keep my tone casual. So, Guy, why not stop here? I suggested, more out of exhaustion than concern. We can discuss this further later. Noir's loyal to me now, and if anything happens, I'll deal with it. My voice sounded tired, though I hadn't even broken a sweat. It wasn't physical exhaustion, it was more the weight of everything that had unfolded recently. Third-person POV. Guy's gaze shifted to Noir, who remained kneeling, his posture unwavering. Something about the way Noir submitted, it wasn't just respect. It was loyalty, a kind of servitude that Guy hadn't expected from the Black Primordial. Crossing his arms, Guy tilted his head slightly, his curiosity piqued. So, you've evolved into a true demon lord, who? His voice held a mixture of amusement and wariness. Noir lifted his head slightly, his golden eyes glowing with a cold, fiery determination. I only seek to serve my lord, the one destined for greatness. A smirk tugged at the corner of Guy's lips. Your lord, who? He glanced back at Rimuru, who was clearly not enjoying the situation. You've got Noir, one of the most dangerous primordial demons, calling you lord now. Quite the promotion, Rimuru. Rimuru sighed, rubbing his temples in frustration. This is just getting worse by the second. Guy chuckled, but the amusement in his eyes was tempered by a sharp, calculating look. He knew Noir didn't bow to just anyone. Something far bigger was at play here, something Guy hadn't quite pieced together yet. But he wasn't going to let this opportunity slip by. Well, Rimuru, Guy said, his voice still light but with a growing edge of seriousness, you've certainly gotten yourself into something big. And with Noir involved, it's only going to get more interesting. Rimuru shot him a dry look, clearly unimpressed. Yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence, Guy. Guy's smirk widened as he turned back to Noir. So, Noir, how about joining the Demon Lord Council? His tone was playful, but his eyes gleamed with intrigue. You could be quite useful, you know. Noir's expression didn't change. I only serve my lord, he repeated, his voice unwavering, cold as ice. Guy's eyebrow arched, his smirk widening. Well, the offer's still on the table if you ever change your mind. But if you're sticking with Rimuru, things are bound to get messy. His gaze flickered toward Rimuru, a mix of curiosity and amusement dancing in his crimson eyes. And that's something I wouldn't miss for the world. Rimuru groaned again, but beneath the tired facade, there was a sharpness in his eyes, a hint of something far deeper than Guy could grasp at the moment. Well, whatever happens next, Guy said, stepping back, it's going to be one hell of a ride. Count me in. Noir's POV. From the very moment my lord entered the scene, my world shifted. There was nothing more important than him. His presence alone commanded my every thought. Every movement, every breath he took, was perfection, and I could feel my loyalty, my devotion, deepening with each second I remained by his side. When Guy spoke, his words barely registered in my mind. My focus was entirely on my lord, his radiance overshadowing everything. Even when Guy's gaze lingered on Chloe, it felt like an insignificant speck compared to the overwhelming brilliance that was Rimuru-sama. To stand in his presence was to witness true greatness, a being far beyond any other in this world. And then Guy attacked. The sight of my lord, the way he effortlessly dodged Guy's strike, was nothing short of divine. His body moved with such fluid grace, slipping beneath Guy's powerful fist as if it were nothing. Rimuru-sama wasn't just avoiding the blow, he was dancing through the fight, orchestrating each move with precision. I watched in awe, my eyes never leaving him, heart racing at every flawless motion. When my lord spun, launching a powerful kick toward Guy, my breath caught in my throat. The shockwave from his strike shook the ground, sending tremors through the earth. He wasn't even using his full power, and yet, the force behind that single kick was enough to devastate the battlefield. How glorious! Every ounce of my being was consumed by admiration. This was the being I served. As they exchanged blow after blow, jab, cross, hook, spin kick, my heart swelled with pride. Each punch was a testament to my lord's unparalleled strength and mastery. He fought with elegance, his strikes calculated yet devastating, like an artist painting with destruction. Even as Guy dodged some of the attacks, it didn't matter. Rimuru-sama was toying with him, holding back, and still dominating the fight. I was in awe of every move, every step he took. Eventually, the two of them paused, creating distance. My lord stood there, completely calm, barely breaking a sweat. It was clear to me that he could have ended the fight at any moment if he desired. But he didn't. He was too merciful. Too perfect. When my lord spoke, his voice was gentle, almost tired, yet it resonated with such authority that it sent a thrill down my spine. So, Guy, why not stop here, he said, his tone carrying that regal weight that only he possessed. Na is loyal to me now. If anything happens, I will deal with it. Loyal. My heart leaped at the word. Yes, I thought. Loyal to you, my lord. Forever and always. There was no greater purpose in my existence than serving my lord. My devotion to him went beyond loyalty, it was worship. Every fiber of my being existed to fulfill his will. Nothing made me happier than to follow his commands, to witness his glory, and to ensure that his path remained unobstructed. If he so desired, I would tear the world apart, all in his name. I would destroy or preserve life as he saw fit. Guy's words, though meant to provoke, barely fazed me. He eyed me with that amused look, thinking he could sway me with offers of power or influence. How foolish. So, you've evolved into a true demon lord, who? Guy's voice cut through the air, but I didn't bother to respond. He wasn't my lord, so his words held no weight to me. Only Rimuru-sama's commands mattered. He could command me to vanish into the void, and I would do so with a smile on my face. Then, Guy smirked, tilting his head slightly. Well, Noir, why not join the Demon Lord Council? My eye shifted toward him, but I felt no pull to his offer. I would serve no one but my lord. I only seek to serve my lord, the one destined for greatness," I replied, my voice steady, yet cold as ice. Guy raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Your lord, who?" His gaze returned to my lord, who stood there, clearly weary of this exchange. "You've got Noir, one of the most dangerous primordial demons, calling you lord now. Quite the promotion." Promotion? No. This was destiny. Rimuru-sama wasn't some mere demon lord, he was beyond such titles. He was my god. His power, his intellect, his very presence, it was divine. No words could do justice to the reverence I felt. His greatness was inevitable, and I would follow him, no matter where his path led. My lord sighed, rubbing his temples as if this entire situation was more of an inconvenience than a serious threat. Even in his casual demeanor, he exuded authority and confidence. He was so far above everyone else that it was almost humorous. "This is just getting worse by the second," he muttered, likely referring to the escalating situation with Guy. I couldn't help but inwardly smile at his frustration. It was a rare glimpse into his inner thoughts, and it only deepened my admiration for him. He carried so many burdens, yet he did so with such grace. Guy chuckled, but his eyes remained sharp. "Well, Rimuru, you've certainly gotten yourself into something big. And if Noir is involved, I have a feeling this isn't going to be as simple as you'd like." I watched as my lord shot him a look of pure exasperation. "Yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence, Guy." Confidence? He had no need for such trivial reassurances. He was already the pinnacle of power. All others would eventually bend the knee, just as I had. It was only a matter of time. Guy's smirk widened. "Well, the offer is still there if you change your mind, Noir. You can still serve Rimuru-sama and join the demon lords." The idea was laughable. I already served the greatest being in existence. Why would I degrade myself by joining the ranks of lesser beings? My loyalty was to my lord and my lord alone. No counsel, no title, no promise of power could ever sway me from that. Without taking my eyes off Rimuru-sama, I replied with an unwavering conviction. "I will follow my lord wherever he goes. His will is absolute." And that was the truth. As long as my lord desired my service, nothing would stand between me and carrying out his will. The world could burn, and I would only see it as a testament to his glory. Afterward, Chloe's POV. Sitting in the dimly lit inn, I stared at the wooden table, letting my thoughts drift back to everything that had happened. Rimuru, Noir, and I had been through so much recently, and yet here we were, sitting like we were having a casual chat. I glanced over at Rimuru beside me, his usual carefree aura masking the weight of what we'd faced together. Across from us, Noir sat, unnervingly composed, his eyes flicking between us with a subtle intensity. It was hard to believe how much had changed in such a short time. The memory of Filtwood's destruction was still fresh in my mind, the dark skies, the overwhelming pressure of Noir's energy, the eerie calm that followed as the city lay in ruins. Noir, the black primordial, one of the most feared beings in existence, had sworn his loyalty to Rimuru. I hadn't seen it coming, not like this. And I wasn't sure Rimuru had, either. I remembered how it felt, standing there in the aftermath, watching Noir kneel before Rimuru, proclaiming him as his lord. That moment had sent a chill through me. Noir's power was suffocating, and to see him bow like that, it was unsettling. The entire situation was surreal. Rimuru didn't ask for this, but somehow, it all just kept happening to him. The memory was still vivid, and now, back in Ingracia, the tension between us hung in the air. We had settled into the inn earlier in the evening, Rimuru and I sitting on one side of the table, Noir across from us, watching with his unwavering focus. He hadn't changed much from that day, still composed, still unshakably loyal. His presence, though calm, was always intense. I glanced at Rimuru again. He didn't show it, but I could tell his mind was working overtime. He'd become good at masking his feelings, keeping that playful, easygoing front up even when things were weighing on him. But I knew him well enough by now to notice the subtle shifts, the way his fingers tapped lightly against the edge of the chair, or how his eyes narrowed ever so slightly when he was deep in thought. I sighed internally, the heaviness of the situation settling over me again. Even now, after all that's happened, I still couldn't quite wrap my head around it. The chaos Noir had caused in Feldway was still hard to reconcile. That destruction, all done in Rimuru's name, without his command. It made me uneasy. Noir had wiped out an entire kingdom like it was nothing, and while he had done it for Rimuru, it hadn't felt right. And Rimuru had been just as frustrated. Yet, Noir seemed utterly devoted. He had done it all without hesitation, without regret. That kind of loyalty, that unwavering dedication, it was admirable, sure, but also terrifying. Noir, Rimuru's voice cut through my thoughts, calm but with an edge of exasperation. We've been over this. I didn't ask for Feldway to be destroyed. Noir's golden eyes shifted to Rimuru, a glint of something unreadable in them as he leaned back slightly in his chair. My lord, he began, his voice smooth and respectful as always, Feldway was merely an obstacle. It was unworthy of your greatness, and I sought only to remove it for your ascension. Rimuru groaned softly, running a hand through his hair. That's not the point, Noir. We don't just destroy things because we can. I didn't need that kind of help. I stayed quiet, watching the two of them. This was becoming a pattern, Noir offering his unwavering loyalty, doing things for the sake of Rimuru-sama, and Rimuru trying to balance that raw power with his own sense of morality. It wasn't easy, and it was clear Rimuru was struggling to handle Noir's devotion. It wasn't like dealing with his usual subordinates. Noir's loyalty came with a dangerous, overwhelming weight. As Noir continued to speak, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. His devotion to Rimuru was so absolute, so all-consuming. And while I trusted Rimuru, I wasn't sure I trusted Noir, or not fully. His idea of what was best for Rimuru didn't always align with what Rimuru actually wanted. And then, there was the fact that Rimuru hadn't even asked for this. Noir had just decided that Rimuru was his new lord, his destined master, and it was as if there was no arguing with him. A part of me felt protective, not just of Rimuru but of everything we were trying to build together. This was supposed to be different. We weren't like the other rulers, the other powerful beings who just crushed anyone who stood in their way. Rimuru wanted more than that, something better. And yet, with someone like Noir by his side, who had no qualms about wiping out entire kingdoms in the blink of an eye, it felt like we were always on the edge of something dangerous. But then, I looked at Rimuru again. The way he handled things, the way he didn't let power consume him, it was why so many people followed him, why I followed him. Even Noir, in his own twisted way, seemed to recognize something in Rimuru that made him want to serve. I let out a breath, trying to shake the heavy thoughts from my mind. There would be time to figure all of this out later. For now, we were together, and that was what mattered. Rimuru glanced at me, a small, reassuring smile on his face. Chloe, you've been quiet. What's on your mind? I hesitated for a second, then returned his smile, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. Just thinking about how you always seem to attract trouble. Rimuru chuckled, his usual light-heartedness returning for a moment. Yeah, tell me about it. Noir remained silent, watching us both with that ever-present intensity. I could feel his gaze, heavy and unreadable, but for now, I ignored it. There would be more discussions to come, more decisions to make. But as long as we were together, I knew we'd figure it out. Rimuru's POV. Sitting in the dimly lit inn, I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything Noir had just said. Across from us, Noir sat with his usual composed demeanor, his golden eyes flickering with an intensity that never seemed to waver. Beside me, Chloe remained silent, clearly absorbing the same information I was. This conversation had taken a weird turn. I initially wanted to figure out why Noir knew about me, because in this timeline, I hadn't met Shizu, and as far as I knew, Shizu hadn't met Noir. That mask, the one that had such a strange connection to both me and her, shouldn't have been on Noir's radar yet. But, apparently, there was much more to the story than I realized. I glanced over at Chloe, then back at Noir. "All right," I said, rubbing my temples. "Explain it to me again. How exactly do you know me?" Noir's gaze sharpened as if he had been anticipating this question. "In this timeline, my lord, it's true that we haven't had the same encounter with Shishu Aizawa as before. However, in a previous timeline, during a confrontation with her, I recognized the power of the mask she wore, the same mask you later came to possess." He paused, watching my reaction. I nodded slowly, remembering. "Right. That mask. It has always been a bit of a mystery." Noir continued, his voice calm and measured. "When I attempted to strike her down, the mask repelled me. Its power was incomprehensible, and I became curious. Afterward, I returned to the spiritual world but continued observing Shishu and the mask in secret. I saw when the mask broke in your hands. That's when I understood your connection to the mask went beyond time itself. You, my lord, are the key to the truth of the world." "Wait. So you've been observing me, even though we never met in this timeline?" His words sent a chill through me. The truth of the world? What was that supposed to mean? I wanted to ask more, but Noir wasn't finished. "More importantly," he continued, "during the final battle with Feldway in the other timeline, things changed. You vanished, sent to the end of time and space, and with your disappearance, all hope seemed lost. Hinata perished in that battle as well." His voice softened slightly, a rare hint of emotion in his otherwise neutral tone. "It was then that Chloe leaped through time, and I saw an opportunity. With the help of my ultimate skill, Azazel, Lord of Temptation, I was able to send my soul back to the past, merging with my younger self and gaining all the memories of what was to come." I blinked, my mind racing to catch up. "Wait, you time leaped? How?" Nar inclined his head. "It was a one-time event, my lord. The cost was great, I lost my ultimate skill in the process. But in doing so, I gained my future self's knowledge and decided I could not remain as I once was. To better serve you, I chose to ascend to the rank of a true demon lord." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "And that's why you destroyed Feldway, right?" Nar's eyes gleamed. "Yes, my lord. When I saw you in this timeline, not as a mere slime but as the fifth true dragon, I knew that all possibilities had shifted. I could not stand by and allow anyone to disrespect you. The humans of Feldway dared to insult you, and their lives were forfeit the moment they did so." I groaned, pinching the bridge of my nose. This was getting out of hand. Even though I also didn't like the vibe of that kingdom, still. "Noir, I didn't need you to destroy an entire kingdom because some random people talked down to me. That's not how I do things." He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of submission. "My lord, I acted only with your honor in mind. The destruction of Feldway was necessary to show the world your true power." I slumped back in my chair, feeling both exasperated and drained. "Necessary? Nah, I didn't ask for any of this. Destroying a kingdom because they disrespected me isn't how I want to handle things. We don't just blow up cities when someone is rude." Noir's expression didn't change. "With all due respect, my lord, I believe that anyone who dares to speak ill of you deserves far worse than what I dealt to Feldway." I stared at him, at a complete loss for words. The devotion was overwhelming. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate Noir's loyalty, there was no doubt he was on my side, but this was too much. Beside me, Chloe shifted slightly in her seat, glancing between us. I could sense her unease. She hadn't said much since Noir started explaining himself, but I could tell she was just as uncertain about all of this as I was. I let out a long breath, trying to find the right words. "Look, Noir. I get that you're loyal to me, and I appreciate that, but you can't just act on your own like this. I don't want to rule through fear or destruction. I want people to follow me because they trust me, not because they're afraid of what you might do to them. I don't want my friends to be afraid of me. That's true, though. I really don't want my loved ones afraid of me." Noir's golden eyes met mine, unwavering. As you wish, Rimuru-sama. I live only to serve you. I shook my head, feeling the weight of his words settle over me. Yeah, I know. But from now on, no more destroying kingdoms without my permission. Got it? Noir inclined his head once again. Of course, my lord. The tension in the room finally seemed to ease a little, but the unease lingered. Noir's devotion was absolute, but his understanding of what I wanted, that was still a work in progress. I leaned back, closing my eyes for a moment. This was a lot to take in. Noir had traveled back through time, merged with his past self, and all of this was to ensure he could help me in the future. The weight of everything that had happened was starting to catch up to me, and I wasn't sure how to process it all. But one thing was clear, Noir had done all of this because he believed in me, believed that I was the key to something far bigger than any of us could fully grasp. All right, Noir, I said, meeting his gaze. Will you be working under my command once more? He smiled, that eerie, unwavering devotion still evident in his expression. I can't ask for more, my lord. I nodded, feeling a slight weight lift off my shoulders. So, once again, your name will be Diawolo. The moment the words left my mouth, a flood of magicules surged out of me, enveloping him in a cocoon of swirling dark energy. It was different this time. Noir had already reached the pinnacle of demon evolution as a true demon lord, but the naming process was still taxing. I could feel nearly 2/25 of my magicules draining away, which was no small amount, especially considering my ridiculous reserves as a true dragon. He's going to become a hell of a monster, I muttered under my breath, laughing dryly as I watched the transformation. The room trembled slightly from the sheer intensity of it all. I glanced over at Chloe, who had remained quiet, watching the whole process with a mix of exasperation and resignation. When our eyes met, her expression shifted, cold and sharp, her usual calm replaced by a piercing glare. You've done it again, she said, her voice ice cold. Naming recklessly. A chill ran down my spine. That look, even after everything, she could still make me feel like I'd done something wrong. I laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of my head. Come on, Chloe, he's loyal to me. He's not going to do anything reckless. She sighed, folding her arms and shaking her head. Maybe, but I wouldn't be so sure. And thanks to him, my plans were completely wrecked. Her words caught me off guard. Despite speaking the final words softly and quietly, I still managed to hear and understand her clearly. She was embarrassed, her tone quieter and softer, and there was a hint of something else. Before I could reply, she added, I have something important to tell you. Meet me by the hills at midnight. She turned to leave, pausing only to mention, I'm going to get something to eat. I blinked, caught between confusion and curiosity. Chloe wasn't usually this flustered. I nodded dumbly as she walked out the door, her presence leaving the room feeling much quieter. I slumped back into my chair, letting out a long sigh. This was supposed to be a simple conversation. Somehow, it had turned into naming demons, destroying kingdoms, and secret meetings by the hills at midnight. Yeah, just another day. At that moment, the cocoon surrounding Diawolo began to dissolve. His new form emerged, not much different in appearance, only his princely garments being replaced by a butler outfit, but the aura around him had become far more intense. His presence alone could suffocate weaker beings. Diawolo, I started, the exhaustion in my voice clear. What do you think about joining the demon lords? Diawolo's eyes gleamed with renewed power as he knelt before me. If you wish for me to join, Rimuru-sama, I will join. I leaned forward, rubbing my chin in thought. It could be useful for information gathering. Plus, it would give us a recognized position. Of course, we wouldn't be following Guy's orders. But our territory would officially be seen as the home of one of the most feared demon lords. A dark smile crossed Diawolo's face. Indeed, Rimuru-sama. With such a title, none would dare to oppose us. Exactly, I said, smirking slightly. We'd have more leverage. and people would think twice before messing with us. Diolo nodded, his loyalty and excitement practically radiating from him. Your foresight is truly magnificent, my lord. Right, I mumbled, leaning back and waving a hand. We'll discuss it later. For now, just take it easy. I'm tired. With that, Diolo rose to his feet, bowing slightly before vanishing into the shadows, leaving me alone to process everything that had just happened. Midnight at the hills, huh? I wondered what Chloe wanted to talk about so privately. Something told me that tonight was going to get even more complicated. Chloe's POV. Sitting beside Rimuru in the dimly lit inn, I tried my best to keep my expression neutral, but the weight of the conversation gnawed at me. Na's calm, unflinching voice seemed to cut through the air, his golden eyes never wavering. His revelation was unexpected, even for someone like me who had seen more than most. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something unspoken lingering between us all. My gaze shifted toward Rimuru. His expression, though composed, was strained. I could tell the gears in his mind were turning as he tried to piece together everything Noir had just revealed. I knew that look well, the way his eyes narrowed slightly when he was deep in thought, the subtle furrow of his brow. He always looked like that when faced with something complicated. Still, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Rimuru was supposed to be carefree, not burdened by whatever plans Noir had been scheming. And yet, here we were, talking about timelines and battles we hadn't even experienced. It was hard not to feel a little lost in all of it. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but the word stayed lodged in my throat. Instead, I glanced at Noir as Rimuru questioned him, trying to understand the depth of his involvement. It was clear that Noir had been watching him, observing him through time, and that alone made me uneasy. The way Noir spoke, with such unwavering devotion, sent a chill through me. I could sense the power radiating from him. His loyalty to Rimuru was almost fanatical. And then came the part about Feldway. I kept my expression neutral, but inwardly, I felt a flicker of irritation. Destroying an entire kingdom just because they insulted Rimuru? That wasn't what we stood for. Noir was loyal, yes, but this kind of devotion was too dangerous. Rimuru didn't need to be feared to be respected. He was someone people admired for his kindness, not his power alone. I felt my hands tense slightly in my lap, but I didn't speak up. I had my own reasons for being quiet. Reasons that had nothing to do with Noir. My eyes flickered toward Rimuru again. His exhaustion was obvious, both mentally and emotionally. It wasn't fair to him. None of this was. He hadn't asked for the power he wielded, nor had he asked for the kind of devotion Noir offered him. And now, even more burdens had been placed on his shoulders. I couldn't let myself be a part of that. Not right now. The conversation dragged on, Rimuru rebuking Noir for his actions, and the demon lord bowed his head in submission. I kept my silence, watching as Rimuru's frustration grew. It was hard, watching him like this, knowing how much he hated the idea of ruling through fear or destruction. He didn't want that. He wanted trust, loyalty born from respect, not fear. And yet, Noir had acted so recklessly, thinking he was doing Rimuru a favor. A part of me wanted to step in, to defend Rimuru's ideals, but another part of me was too distracted. As the conversation came to a close, and Rimuru sighed deeply, slumping back in his chair, I knew my time to speak was running out. I should have said something, anything. But instead, I stood up, ready to leave. But before I left, I had to make sure he would be there. Meet me by the hills at midnight, I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. It was a casual statement, but my heart raced as I spoke. I could feel a flush creeping up my neck, though I forced myself to stay calm. He blinked, clearly caught off guard, but nodded slowly. Okay. Why? I have something important to tell you, I added, trying to keep my voice neutral. I couldn't look at him too long, I didn't want him to see how flustered I really was. I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm going to get something to eat, I said over my shoulder before stepping out the door. As the cold night air hit my face, I exhaled deeply, trying to steady myself. I was embarrassed. There was no denying that. I had been thinking about this moment for too long, trying to figure out the right time to. No, I couldn't even say it. But it was happening. Tonight. I was going to tell him, and nothing, not even Diablo, was going to stop me. But what if it wasn't the right time? What if this ruined everything? My mind raced with doubt as I walked away, but I couldn't turn back now. Midnight at the hills. I just had to wait until then. Third-person POV. Rimuru leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling, deep in thought. Diablo's time leap explanation weighed heavily on his mind. The concept itself wasn't new, he had seen it with Chloe before, but something about Diablo's ability to time leap through merging with his past self was unsettling. It wasn't just his loyalty that was in question now, it was his very existence, his essence, that seemed to bend the rules of time and space. Ciel, Rimuru called out softly, his tone carrying a hint of concern. What do you think about this whole time leap thing with Diablo? Ciel's voice responded smoothly in his mind, always calm, always reliable. I don't know, Master. This is new to me as well. I'll need some time to investigate it properly. Rimuru sighed, rubbing his temples. It's just weird, you know? Diablo's always been loyal, borderline obsessive, but this? Merging with his past self? It feels like something out of a bad time travel novel. Ciel's presence flickered in his thoughts, almost like a comforting embrace. Indeed, Master. His devotion to you seems to transcend even the boundaries of time itself. However, I would advise caution. The implications of this power are significant. Rimuru frowned. Do you think there could be others like him? Other individuals who can leap through time like that? Maybe mess with things without us even knowing. There was a pause, and Rimuru could almost feel Ciel pondering the question before she replied. I don't think so, Master. Diablo's case is unique, rare, even. But as with all things, it's not impossible. We must remain vigilant. Rimuru's mind raced. The possibility of more people, or demons, playing with time was unsettling. If Diablo could do it, who's to say others couldn't? And what about Chloe? She had the hero's egg, the ability to time leap through her own experiences. It was a power that came with risks, and now, it seemed, those risks were multiplying. Diablo's always been a bit extreme, Rimuru muttered to himself, crossing his arms. But I didn't expect him to be capable of something like this. It feels like every time I turn around, there's some new surprise waiting to throw me off balance. Ciel responded gently, Master, while this situation is unexpected, you've handled countless challenges before. Diablo's loyalty remains unwavering, and despite his methods, his intentions have always been to protect and serve you. Rimuru grunted in acknowledgement. Yeah, I know that. But it doesn't make it any less unnerving. First, there was that mysterious presence in the timeline I sensed. And now Diablo's essentially rewriting his own existence. He paused, allowing his thoughts to catch up. This timeline is getting so messy. Ciel's voice was patient. You've maintained order before, Master. You will again. Rimuru leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. If there's one thing I know, it's that I'm not going to sit back and let anyone mess with me. If anyone dares to try manipulating things behind the scenes, they'll regret it. Ciel responded with her usual steady tone. We will take action when necessary. I will continue to monitor all disturbances. Nothing will escape our notice. Rimuru smiled to himself. Ciel's unwavering confidence always put him at ease. Still, he couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. Diablo, for all his loyalty, was unpredictable in the worst ways sometimes. Well, Rimuru thought to himself, his tone shifting to a carefully cocky attitude, whatever happens, I'll handle it. They can try messing with me all they want, but they're going to learn real quick that I'm not someone to be toyed with. Ciel's voice hummed in agreement. Indeed, Master. I will ensure we are prepared for any eventuality. Rimuru stood up, stretching his arms above his head as he looked out the window. The hills outside were bathed in moonlight, and the night felt unusually still. Midnight was approaching. He had Chloe to meet soon, and he couldn't help but wonder what she wanted to talk about. All right, Ciel, he said, rolling his shoulders, let's put this time leap issue on hold for now. We'll deal with it when the time comes. As you wish, Master, Ciel replied, her presence retreating slightly, allowing Rimuru's thoughts to settle. Rimuru took a deep breath, clearing his mind. Diolo's unpredictability, the strange feeling that something else was lurking in the timeline, and now Chloe's midnight request, it all piled up. But whatever it was, he'd handle it. He always did. And if anyone was foolish enough to test him, well, they'd be in for a rude awakening. The night sky stretched endlessly above Ingrassia, the stars shimmering like distant diamonds scattered across a velvet canvas. The moon, nearly full, bathed the hills in a soft, silvery glow. The gentle breeze carried with it the faint scent of wildflowers, their petals glistening with dew beneath the moonlight. The landscape seemed alive, whispering with the wind as it rustled through the tall grass that swayed gently in the cool night air. At the crest of the hills, the view was breathtaking. Below, the city of Ingrassia lay sprawled out, its lights twinkling faintly in the distance. The world below felt distant, almost dreamlike, as if it were a different realm entirely. Up here, in this quiet solitude, the hills seemed to exist in their own time, untouched by the bustle of the city. The air was crisp, the stars brighter, and the weight of the world lighter. The rolling slopes were a deep shade of green, softened by the night, with patches of wildflowers dotting the landscape in clusters. The flowers, hidden by day, seemed to bloom under the moon's light, their colors muted but their beauty undeniable. A stream trickled nearby, its water glistening like molten silver as it wound its way down the hill, its gentle murmur adding to the peaceful symphony of the night. A single oak tree stood at the highest point, its ancient branches spreading wide, offering shelter beneath its sprawling canopy. The tree, gnarled and twisted by centuries of growth, was a silent witness to the passing of time, its bark rough yet comforting, a guardian of this tranquil spot. The leaves, kissed by the breeze, made a soft rustling sound that echoed in the stillness. As the minutes passed, the moon climbed higher, casting long shadows across the grass, the hills now awash in a pale, ethereal light. The stars twinkled in response, as if in quiet conversation with the moon. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, the world holding its breath for something yet to come. Then, at the edge of the hill, a figure stepped into the clearing, their silhouette outlined by the soft glow of the moon.